Alrighty, everyone. We're gonna kind of follow on where we've been for the last few weeks, and today we're kind of talking about perhaps the best way to put it is some of the things that we as human beings tend to do to make things harder than they ought to be, and to get in our own way. To stand in our own way. Our shadow is when we are looking at the reaction of our physical body and the sun. And if we can't see the sun, but we can see the shadow, it's real easy. Right? We're looking in the wrong direction. Just have to turn around. Have you ever seen the videos of children who are frightened when they see their shadow? That's kind of keep that visual in mind there. This is sometimes what we do as human beings, what we do when we have done our treatment, we have followed the steps outlined last week, we have placed something into the law, and it doesn't seem to be working. Right? And there's a catch-22 there, because if it's done unto you according to your belief, if you believe it's not working, it works by not working. Right? And that sounds like nonsense. But just stop and think about that. If, in fact, it is true that it is done unto you according to your belief, if you believe it's not working, it must not work. It must appear to not be working, but it is working perfectly. So one of the places we want to start is we're going to start with this sense of struggle. We want to start with this sense of struggle. So I'm just gonna put out a question that I want you to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Actually, two questions as we go through this day and then as you go through this week. Since the last time we got together, seven full days have gone by. And I ask you to consider, of all of the waking hours that you had in those 7 full days, how much time and attention did you give to cultivating your consciousness, to actually cultivating your consciousness as much as you would cultivate a garden? How much time did you give to thinking about what you were thinking about, as opposed to just going through the day reacting and responding to whatever the day may bring? How much time did you spend actually deliberately focusing on what you were thinking about, observing your thoughts, and evaluating them? Is this what I want to think? Is this the kind of thought that I want to be having? And if not, can you sow the opposite seed? So that's one thing. I say this over and over again. The one thing that we as human beings can do, that as far as we know no other species can do, is we may become self-aware. We may become aware of this thing called thought. We may be aware of these things that we call ideas that are somewhere in our field of consciousness. And we identify with them. We identify with our thoughts. Right? It goes beyond I think, therefore I am. It becomes what I think I become. If there's an angry thought, then I'm angry. There's a happy thought, I'm happy. And we must learn, as we mature in our spiritual consciousness, we must learn that we can choose. We can observe as something is arising, and we can decide if we want it or we don't want it. And that's an important part of our spiritual growth. So I just ask you to consider it. I'm going to say that that's the most important thing that you can do for your spiritual growth. Is to become that observer, to exercise dominion over your own thoughts. And if that's true, then how much time did you spend last week? How much time did I spend last week? How much time did anyone spend last week? How much time do you spend thinking about what you're thinking about? Because this is where the growth comes from. The second thing that I invite you to consider is how much effort, how much sense of personal responsibility did you feel when you wanted light and you flipped the light switch? Did you go over to the light switch and do some kind of a ritual before the light switch? You know, oh mighty light switch, I beseech thee to give me light. Did you stop before you flipped the light switch and think, well, gee, did I pay the light bill this month? And I wonder if the wires in the house are still good, and I wonder if the circuit breaker's turned on, and I wonder if the bulb in the light is okay. We probably didn't do any of that. Probably had an intention to turn on the light without understanding how your body moved from here to there. Your hand reached out and flipped the switch, and that was it. That was it. You had no sense of struggle. You had no sense of strife. You had no sense of personal responsibility. Because whether you knew it or not, there is a law of electricity at work. You didn't even have to know that there was a law, nor did you have to know how electricity flows. I remember all of the hours and hours we spent in basic electronics and basic electricity, and understanding about how electrons move through copper wires and complete a circuit and flow and all these different things. You don't need to know any of that in order to turn the light on. You just flip the switch. The same is true if you want to drink a water. You know, you get your glass and you hold it under the outlet, whether it be a tap in your sink or whether it be something in the door of your fridge, and you just do whatever you need to do to open that valve. And you expect that water to flow. You would be surprised if the water did not flow. It would be abnormal were it not to flow. You never think about it. You don't stop and think for a minute, gee, I wonder if they had enough water in the river this year. I wonder if the city is able to draw enough water out. I wonder if they're able to process it. I wonder if there's enough pressure on the main. You know, is the valve outside my house turned on? None of those. You don't do any of those things. You want water, you get a glass, you open the valve. So two things to kind of keep in mind as we go through this day. Two things that kind of go together. How much time do we spend actually doing the one thing that is going to change our entire lives here on this earth, and is going to help us as we go through eternity together, as we continue to spiral upward? And when we do deliberately set our intention into the power that responds to us according to our belief, do we do so as certainly as we throw the light switch and expect the light? As we throw the light switch and expect the light. Remember last week we said that faith is a knowing so certain that an opposite idea cannot enter your consciousness. When you throw that light switch, you generally have no idea to the opposite that enters your mind. You throw the light switch, you want light, you throw the light switch, you expect light, and you have light. There's no idea to the opposite that enters your mind. You don't think, well, maybe the law of electricity is not working today. You don't think, well, I need to use the power of my mind. I need to use the willpower. I need to use force, and I need to start pushing those electrons through the wires so that they will go through the light bulb, and the light bulb will convert the electrical energy to heat, and it will glow, and I will get light. You don't do any of that, you see. In simple terms, we could say, you have turned the whole matter over to the law of electricity, and you have gotten out of the way. You have stepped back and you have gotten out of the way. Now coming back to the first point again, coming back to this business of how much time and attention do we give to being aware of what we are actually thinking about. Here's why it's so important. And this comes from Dr. Carlton Whitehead, and he wrote an excellent book, and it's called Creative Meditation. And it's available on Amazon. I think it's only used now, but it's available on Amazon. You may be able to get it at the library. He also gives 7 steps. Remember last week we went through, Bales gave us the 7 R's of a process to build faith, a process of spiritual mind treatment. Whitehead calls it creative meditation. And he also gives us 7 steps. And he explains it in a slightly different way. And I may go back to Whitehead at some point in the future, and we'll go through how he explains it. It's very important that we take the opportunity to look at different writers, to read their works, to listen to different teachers, to kind of get these same ideas put to us in as many different ways as possible until we get them. So in Buddhism, they have the idea of the raft. You're on one shore and you want to get to another shore, and you need a raft to get there. And the teaching is the raft. Now sometimes we need to hear the same idea presented to us in different ways. Sometimes we may need to see it as a visual image. We may need to hear it. We may need to feel it somehow, But eventually we get it. And it is staying with the idea until we get it. Staying with it until we get it that is most important. And the idea, the very fundamental idea, the very simple idea that you will see through the different teachings, through the different eras, through the eons, is that God is all there is. God is all there is. And we are one with that. But we don't quite realize it. In Hinduism, they talk about the fall, but not the fall as in Adam and Eve in the garden. That is another way of representing what is called the fall. But that this pure, unlimited consciousness, the omniscience and the omnipotence that the divine is, fell into matter. It descended into matter to take on expressing life as matter and through matter. And in doing so, it had ignorance heaped upon it. And you say, well, why would we heap ignorance upon it? Why would God do that? And it is necessary to create individuality. If we were born and we came out of the womb and we were fully enlightened, there would be no further development, right? It just we would be all that there is, all that we could be. But by coming in with a certain amount of forgetfulness, we have a chance to develop from that point forward again, to learn, to grow. Excuse me. In some of the mystical teachings of Judaism, there's a mythology, and I love it. To me it's beautiful. Now you could ask me if it's literally true or not, and I would tell you I don't know. I have no way of knowing. But it's a teaching story to me. It's a parable, and it expresses an idea that is very valuable for me and for us, I believe, on our growth. And here's the idea that is taught. That before the soul decides to come to earth, before we decide to come to earth to be born or incarnated in a particular situation, in a particular lifetime, we decide on a purpose of our life. This is why we are coming into this situation. This is why we are being born where we're being born. And they go so far as to say there's a contract. There's a contract that the soul fills out this contract and says, this is why I'm going to earth this time. And once that is done, the soul is implanted, if you will, or inserted, if you will, or arrives in the perfect fetus, in the perfect womb, in the perfect human body, to be born into the situation that is going to give rise to the circumstances that are going to help that soul grow in the way that it chose to grow in this lifetime. And as the little baby is growing in the womb, there's an angel present with it. And the angel is explaining to this little one everything that it's going to need to know as it goes through this life. Everything that it's going to need to do as it goes through life in order to fulfill its own chosen purpose. And at this point, the soul is still very much illuminated, very much in contact, very much in unity with the presence of the divine. But in order to enter the world and in order to fulfill that purpose, it has to forget. It has to forget some of that. Not all of it, but some of it. So when the angel is finished instructing the soul, it takes its finger and it taps the little one on its lips. The finger is vertically and it taps him on the lips with the finger pointing right up at the tip of the nose. And as the legend goes, that is why we have the little dimple in our top lip. That's where the angel tapped us. And at the moment the angel tapped us, we forgot. Now again, I have no idea that that's literally true, but it kind of helps to illustrate the point that we come from the unity. We come into this experience on earth with a sense of forgetfulness. And really what we are doing as we are growing is we are remembering our way back home. We are remembering our way back home in a manner that helps us to grow in a certain way, to learn in a certain way, to express in a certain way. I love to put it in terms of expression. What did we come here to express? How did we come here to express joy? So we find ourselves in this world, and as Trine gave us the example of, if we can open that floodgate and create a greater flow of the divine into our lives, everything else takes care of itself. Once that water started to flow into the pond, the intelligence of life knew exactly what to do. So our growth, the growth of our soul, the growth of our awareness and our spirituality is reconnecting, is remembering. We have the spiritual self, which is perfect, whole, and complete. We have the human self, which is having a different experience. But the experience the human self is having is not the truth, it is not the reality, it is the experience. Important to remember. Darkness is an experience created by the temporary blocking of the light of the sun. At nighttime the sun is shining, but we experience darkness because we are in the shadow. And as soon as we come out of the shadow, we are restored to the experience of the light. So what we are told, what we are being told is that the bridge between the human experience and the spiritual experience is our consciousness, our thoughts. And what Whitehead tells us in the chapter I was reading this morning is, if we think about attention, where our attention is, that is our prayer. That is our prayer. Our life follows what we give our attention to. What did you give your attention to this week? Was it to the comings and goings of the world, to what was going on in the news, to all these other work, to all these other things? Probably yes. But how much time did we give to building that bridge? To, in Trine's illustration, to opening the floodgate a little bit more. Joel Goldsmith, in his writings, he founded The Infinite Way. And Joel Goldsmith said that somebody came to him one time and said to him, you know what we need to do? We need to start an Infinite Way University. Because you can bring people in and you can teach them this, and it's more valuable than any education they would get in any university. And Goldsmith said, where am I going to get people who will turn their attention to God and spend time in meditation 7 days a week for 7 or 8 years until they get it? He said it takes that dedicated effort. And he told his students to meditate 5 times a day. He said it takes that dedicated effort. So this is why I asked the question, how much time did we spend last week cultivating our consciousness? Cultivating our awareness of the presence of God. It's all around us, it's in us, it's as us, it's through us. It is the air that we breathe, it is the air that we give back to the trees. And yet we go through our lives doing all of that at a level below conscious awareness. We don't think about breathing, we don't think about walking, we don't think about digesting our food. It all occurs without us trying to help it along. But yet it is the miracle that if we turn our attention to it, it helps us to become more aware of the miracle of life around us. I love when a new baby is born into a family, and you hear the same thing. I don't care whose family it is, you hear the same thing. Oh my God, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. Look at this little one is a miracle. See, we rejoice in the birth of a child. We see that in the birth of a child. It's a miracle. But the miracle is with us every day, every moment of every day. So the first thing that I'm suggesting is take a look at your calendar, take a look at your schedule, reflect back on where you were last week and the week before. How much time do you spend deliberately paying attention to what you're thinking? Because what you give your attention to is your prayer. It is your prayer. That's what you're expecting. That's what you believe in. See, that's what you're interested in. And our growth is to change that direction, to point back to the source, to point back to the divine. Now, we went through a couple of things. We said, there's a power in the universe that responds to you exactly according to your belief. We call this the law of mind. We went through a foundation. We said that when the divine creates, the divine simply speaks its intention, right? The divine says, let there be, and there is. Now, of course, the divine, by whatever concept we have, it doesn't speak as we do, it doesn't have vocal cords as we do. So this is a movement of thought. This is a deliberate intention that spirit, the divine, God, by whatever name you choose to call it, it wishes to experience something. And it speaks its word, it makes its intention, however you want to put it. And then something acts upon that word, something that we call the law of mind. And it is intelligent. It knows exactly what to do. It knows when to do it. It knows how to do it. But it doesn't change the direction that it was given. This is most important. It does not change the direction that it was given. And Dr. Holmes gives us the example of planting tomatoes in your garden. If you put tomatoes seeds in the soil, you will get tomato plants. The soil does not say, oh no, no, no. Tomatoes give you heartburn. I'm not going to give you tomatoes. I'm going to give you lettuce instead. The creative medium, which is what the law of mind is, does not alter. It takes what it is given and it produces the outpicturing that is the equivalent of that thought. And it also makes no judgment about what we put into it, whether it is good for us or it is not good for us. If we choose to plant something that is not good for us, we will get something that is not good for us. So we tend to bring about in our lives conditions that are the outpicturing of the sum total. This is an important point, the sum total of what we believe. Remember we said disease is not always a result of a conscious thought. Nobody says, well, gee, I want arthritis in my ankle. But there's something going on in the sum total, the totality of what we are thinking or have been thinking and have been believing. And that arthritis is the logical outcome of it. Bales gave us the example of the man who was resentful that he had to walk to his sister-in-law's house, didn't want to go. And over years he developed severe arthritis and couldn't walk. And after work, and the man had been through doctors, he had had his tonsils removed, he had all the fillings taken out of his mouth, all these things that he tried to help the condition. And Bales was able to help him change his thinking, and within 2 months' time, his rheumatism or arthritis, I think he said it was arthritis, went away. There is a power in the universe that responds to us exactly according to our belief. Every time we work with that power, every time we deliberately choose to cooperate with that power, what that does for us is it helps us to realize more fully that we are in fact connected to the divine. So learning how to use the law, learning how to cooperate with it, learning how to have demonstrations, it's not about getting more stuff. Dr. Holmes tells us with all you're getting, you must get God. We start the process of treatment by thinking about God. Excuse me, getting a drink. By the way, if you look at the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, as it's given to us in the New Testament, what does it start with? It starts with what do we know about God? And then what is our relationship with God? Our Father who art in heaven. Okay? Hallowed be thy name, wholeness. Wholeness be your nature, your very way of being. It is a template for what we are talking about here. Remember the disciples said, teach us how to pray, not what to pray for, but how to pray. And the prayer they got was a form of how to pray. Start by thinking about what you know about God. So we start with our intention, and we have to realize that you and I are the only ones who can set our intention. I can't set yours for you, you can't set mine for me. But we have to have our intention. And we follow the steps that were given last week. We follow the steps to cooperate with the law, the way the law works, as best as we can at this time. And when we see that result, this is why healing work attracts followers. When we see that result, we know something's going on. Something is going on there. What is happening? What is going on there? And every time we do this, what we are doing is we are erasing from our consciousness, erasing from race consciousness, ideas that are not in attune, not in harmony with the divine truth. That's all we're doing. So we come into this world, the spiritual self comes into this world, into the physical body, and the spiritual self is perfect, it is whole, it is complete, because it is the divine expressing itself. It is expressing itself through the human self. And that human self gets filtered, the perfection of the spiritual gets filtered through consciousness, through the race consciousness. This is why Trine says the bridge between the spiritual self and the human self are our thoughts, are our consciousness. So what we want to keep in mind is that what we are doing is we are working with a power that responds to us according to our belief. Right? This is the New Testament message of Jesus. It is done unto you according to your belief. We are working with a power that responds to us according to our belief. And we want to think of it in terms of working as reliably as electricity, as reliably as the water comes out of our faucet. We want to take any sense of personal responsibility for making that law work. We want to take that out of the equation, because this is one of the things that we as human beings do to get in our own way. We do our treatment, we say we release it unto the law. Excuse me, I'm getting some more tea here. But then we want to make it work the way that we think it ought to work. We want to help it along. We've started the snowball rolling down the hill. We've released it to the law of gravity, but then we want to run alongside it and give it a little push every now and then. Or we want to turn it this way, or we want to turn it that way. We want to be in control. The human ego wants to be in control. One of the things that has happened to us as we have grown up in this world is that we have developed a sense that which is valuable is difficult. That which is valuable is difficult. Why is gold more valuable than beach sand? It's harder to get. Can you imagine? You imagine if you went to the car dealer and you said, I want to buy that new car right there, and I'm going to give you this handful of gold that I have. The car dealer would probably be very happy to take your handful of gold, because it's worth way more than that car. But if you went there and said, I'm going to give you this handful of beach sand, they would throw you out the door. Beach sand is too plentiful. It has no commercial value. We tend to try to make things more difficult than they need to be if we want them to be valuable. We make them harder than they need to be if we want them to be valuable. Look at professional sports. Look at basketball, for example. Who would pay to go see a basketball game if the basket was only 4 feet off the floor? Nobody. It's too easy. Anybody can just walk up to it and drop the ball right through the hoop. It has to be up 10 feet off the floor. And as the sport developed, remember when that game was developed, the average height of the people who played it was 5 feet 2 inches. Now we're getting people 7 feet tall to play the game, and it became too easy. So then they had to introduce the 3-point shot. They had to get the players to stand back further. My point is that we are used to making things difficult in order for them to be valuable. That's our expectation. If it's not difficult, it's not valuable. What is the most valuable thing in your entire life? Your consciousness. Your conscious realization of the presence and the activity of God. That is the most valuable thing in your life. And we try to make that more difficult than it needs to be. Right? We think, well, gee, in order to do that, I've got to go sit in a cave for 9 years and stare at the wall. That's appropriate for some people. And it's good for them, and it's actually good for the world. But everybody doesn't have to do that. We think, well, gee, if I'm going to develop my consciousness of God, I need to be at the church door every time the church opens, and I need to be in there praying all day long. That may be some people's path, but that's not necessary, because it all occurs in your consciousness, not in a building, in your consciousness. Have you turned your attention to the divine all day long? Or are you focused on the good that's around you all day long? So what we tend to do is we tend to make it hard. We think, well, some things are just very hard. I can do this treatment thing. I can do this, and maybe if I've got a cut finger, I can do this treatment thing, and I can watch it heal. But if I have something more serious, it's not going to work. Or if I have something more serious, then I need to treat harder. I need to make it difficult. I need to spend 30 minutes 3 times a day. I need to scrunch up my eyes. I need to get my willpower involved, and I need to try to force this to happen. And we do all of those things. Dr. Holmes said, if you're doing your treatment and you have a headache when you're done, you're doing it wrong. We are setting into motion the law that does the work. We are doing that with our intention. We are doing that with following a specific line of thought, right? So Dr. Holmes used the term meditation, and he said a specific line of thought. That's not the way many teachers use meditation, so I just want you to understand that when you read his works. Specific line of thought. What do I wish to have happen now? And then follow the steps that we outlined last week. And when we've done those steps, we are done. We are done. We don't have to push it. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to think, did I do it right? We don't have to worry, well, is the law going to work today or not work today? We are done. We have done everything that is required. Now, what happens if we don't get the demonstration right away? What happens? Well, we start to doubt, you see. We start to get full of fear. We start to get full of doubt. We start to think to ourselves, well, I've done something wrong. Excuse me, I'm just looking for a book that I had here. Here it is. We start to think, I've done something wrong. And these are what Dr. Carlton Whitehead calls power leaks. Power leaks. And here's the example he gives us. You want to put your sprinkler on your garden. You put your seeds in the ground, you want to put your sprinkler on the garden, and you go and you turn on the hose. You turn the tap for the hose. But water doesn't come out of the sprinkler. What's going on? He said, well, if you go look at the hose, you've got little leaks everywhere. There's holes all throughout that hose. And by the time the water gets through the hose to the sprinkler, it's all leaked out someplace else. Power leaks. And what he tells us is that what we do is we do our treatment, and then we have all of these leaks in our consciousness. We have all of these other things that we turn our attention to, and we start worrying, and we start doubting, and we start doing all of these other things. And we give away all our power. Remember, what we give our attention to, that's our prayer. This is what he's telling us. So what we are doing is we are saying one thing, and then we are immediately saying everything else. Well, maybe it won't work. Well, maybe this. Well, maybe that. Well, maybe the other thing. And remember, what our goal is to arrive at a place of knowing so certain that the opposite idea can't even be formed. Go back to turning the light switch. You just turn the light switch on and you expect those lights to come on. If you sat there and you worried and you said, oh my goodness, do they have enough uranium down at the plant? Oh my goodness, did the storm bring the power lines down? Or maybe this light isn't going to light today because God doesn't want me to have light today. And all of these other things that we do to give our power away. Excuse me. I'm going to try a little sip here. And I'm going to read you some things that Carlton Whitehead gives us as a checklist. Right? So if you have done your treatment, now remember, you can treat every day, you can treat a couple times a day if you want, but you want to arrive at the feeling that this time it is complete. It is complete, it is done, this is as much as I can do. You never want to go into your treatment work for any specific and say, well, this is going to take a lot of work. Never, never, because it's done unto you according to your belief. If you think it's going to take a lot of work, it's going to take a lot of work. You want to go in saying, what I need to do is I just need to know so certainly. and turn it over to the law. But if you're not getting your answer, right, you don't give up. Let's say you did turn on the light switch and nothing happened, right? What would you do? You do a little troubleshooting. Are other lights in the house working? Yes or no? No, well, maybe electricity's off in the neighborhood, Yes, well, maybe the circuit breaker for this one light is out. Maybe there's a bad switch. Maybe there's a bad bulb. You would methodically go find out the reason why it's not working, and the reason you do that is you know that the law is infallible, and if somebody cooperates with the law of electricity, the light has to light. The light doesn't have any choice but to light. So it's the same idea with treatment. So, first thing, ask yourself, do I fully accept the principle of omnipresence as infinite life, unlimited power, transcendent intelligence, inexhaustible supply, and all-encompassing love, to the total exclusion of all belief in opposite force? Excuse me. You think that God is all there is, and God is good, and all of God is for you, and none of God is against you? And that's important, because sometimes people will say, well, God sent me this trouble to teach me a lesson, or God sent me this trouble to punish me. The divine will not do anything to you that it would not do to itself, because it only knows you as part of itself. So ask yourself, do you truly believe that God is all there is and God is good? And then he says, ask yourself, do I believe in my heart I'm constantly surrounded and infused by this presence? Right? It's not just enough to know that God is good. It's that the presence is right here. All presence is right here. The presence that I am is the presence of the divine expressing as me, through me. Not that I am God, but all that I am is the divine expressing through me, filtered through my consciousness. Do I truly believe that? Or do I believe in separation? Or I believe that God is out there in heaven far away? See? Ask yourself, do I truly believe that? And here's the tough one. Ask yourself if your actions would reflect upon that belief. Do you truly go through life as if you believe that all the love of the divine is right here with you, in you, as you, and through you? Next step, do I truly recognize the presence of God in all creation as the fundamental unity of being? That not only, is the divine all presence and presence as my presence, but all presence. The people I might need to meet in order to help me launch my idea, the medical staff to help resolve some particular issue. Whatever it is, do I believe that all presence is the divine? See, and when we do that dissolves the fear. Fear is the absence of love. And if you don't know love, you don't know God, because God is perfect unity. So do you believe that God is all there is? Do you believe that God is flowing through you, as you, and all people? Do you thoroughly understand the great law? Do you thoroughly understand the law and the power? It's done unto you according to your belief. When the divine said, let there be, there was. There was because the law took that word and acted upon that word and made it so. God said, let there be light, and there was light. God said, let there be planets, and there were planets. Right? This is a teaching story. This is telling us that creation is a deliberate act of intention. And if you look at the creation myths of the world, creation is a deliberate act by a creator. The divine said, let there be, and there was. Do you truly believe that? Do you truly understand that? Is the good that I desire defined clearly enough that it's recognizable when it appears? And again, this is important because sometimes we say, well, I want life. Well, you have life. Right? Specifically, how will you know when this demonstration arrives? Specifically, but not too specific. What are the qualities of the demonstration? What are the qualities that this particular demonstration will allow you to express? How will I express life more fully as a result of this demonstration? Get to the qualities. Next step, do I feel that this good already belongs to me? Do you think it's going to happen someday? Well, it's never going to happen, because someday is always in the future. In the present moment, right here, right now, do you feel that it is an already accomplished fact in the mind of God? It is already here. It is unfolding perfectly right here and right now. Can we be in the present tense? And this last one, I think we're going to go more into it next week, about gratitude. Are you generous in your praise, your appreciation, and your gratitude that infinite wisdom is unfolding your good in an orderly sequence according to the law of mind? Remember we said what you give your attention to is your prayer. I mean, think how important that is. Think about how we go through today. Think about the first question I asked today. How much time did you spend last week thinking about what you're thinking about? You gave your attention to all sorts of different things. There's a creative medium that responds to you according to your belief. You are putting all sorts of things into that creative medium. You are planting all sorts of seeds all week long. How do you change that so that you're giving your attention to the good that you wish to have happen? And gratitude. Gratitude is a practice. Gratitude is the way to do that. Can you stop every moment, everything that happens in your life? Can you see the good in it? Can you see the good in all people? Even the people who do bad things, can you see the good in them? Can you see the good in the air that you breathe and the water that you drink? Can you see the good in the works that you do in the world? This is the whole spiritual intent of tithing. Not a tax, or an obligation, which other people have made it. Can you recognize the activity of the love of God in some specific way and contribute to that? Whether it be a charity, whether it be a neighbor, no matter what that's forcing you to do is it's forcing you to say, I know God is out there. I know God is in here. I know God is working. And I'm going to discover where that's flowing and support that. Give your time and give your attention to being more aware of the presence and the activity of God. Celebrate everyone. Celebrate everything. Celebrate all the time. We're going to leave it there until next week, and we're going to talk more about gratitude. There's no sense of struggle in the law. There's no sense of ego trying to make it happen. There is a heart that is turning itself towards the divine and saying, I am open, I am receptive, flow through me more fully. I give freely. I give freely of the love that you give to me. And this world is a better place. And so it is.